Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I'm your host, Jessie Brown, and I am, honestly, super excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 121. It is a beautiful Sunday morning this morning, and I just could not wait to jump on the microphone and chat with you all. I have been making some incredible connections with you guys, with the listeners, and this morning I read a few comments that were on my YouTube channel, which if you didn't know, I have a YouTube channel where I post all my videos. So I also have videos as well as audio. So for any of you who have only experienced audio, if you're interested in watching video as well, I definitely encourage you to do so. As you will see this morning, you guys, I don't even have my makeup done yet, and I was so excited to come jump on with you all. So I hope that that's okay with you guys. But I think I'm really excited because as I start to make connections with you guys, I'm starting to really understand the things that you guys are needing to hear. And when I started my podcast, I knew I wanted to make a difference. I didn't really realize what that was going to look like, how big I wanted that to be, who I was going to be speaking to. And I feel like the last week, the more so that I've been beginning to connect the dots, and it's only the beginning. We've been on this podcasting journey for a little over 2 years. And although we're only in the beginning, I'm recognizing that so many of you just need permission to know that what you're feeling and going through is okay and how to tend to it. I feel like I've gone through therapy. I've gone through many counselors. I've spoken to many people. And the one thing that I really needed was someone to just understand what I was going through. I've studied social work. I've been a counselor. I am a coach now. And I like to provide education and provide awareness. I don't like to fix, quote unquote, your problems, because I feel like that's what was done for me for so long. Is just giving me another tool, another framework, another piece of homework, another video to watch, another to do, which is great, but it's not empowering me to heal and to become that next best version of myself. And so today's episode is about something that has taken me pretty much my whole life to get to this conclusion, and I'm still working on this. And this is a big, bold title to say, because when you listen to this title, it's going to sound like, oh my gosh, she has the answer. She's figured it out. And I want to say and preface, this is not a substitute for going to therapy in any way, shape, or form, or for seeing a counselor, but more so my goal is to have this in tandem with, to have this as support outside of those sessions. And so today we're going to talk about how to talk yourself out of anxiety. Now, I really need to preface here, because if you are somebody who has chronic anxiety or are living in a chronic state of survival, or are currently still in an environment where you are potentially in danger psychologically or even physically, this is not going to resonate. This is not going to land. This is not going to be helpful. This is more so for those of us who deal with anxiety from time to time, who feel it, who've experienced it. And listen, I've gone through spurts of my life where I felt anxiety from dusk till dawn, rinse and repeat 365 days a year. I know what that feels like as well. This is more so for those times where we get an anxious feeling and we're like, what the actual F is happening? Why do I feel this? What is going on? How do I tend to this? Why am I catastrophizing? Why is it getting worse? We've all experienced that, or at least to some degree, we might have experienced something similar to that. And in episode number 117, I chatted about how our childhood experiences can show up as anxiety in adults. And so this podcast episode is kind of piggybacking off of that one because I had a few of you asking me for some more tangible things that we can really do. And everything I'm going to share with you is things that have helped me. And so I can only speak from my experience in the hopes that this helps one of you. I will just say some of this is clinically proven to help anxiety. This isn't just something that I pulled out of my yin yang and was like, yeah, let's talk about this. I've put these tools to the test and they help a lot. And they've helped me a lot in the last couple of months as I've gone through, dealing with the breakup and just different shifts in life and going through the motions, that 24-year-old age where you're trying to figure your life out or whatever, your early 20s, just trying to figure it all out. And just so you know, you don't have to have it all figured out, which is something I'm also trying to remind myself of. But how to talk yourself out of anxiety. Let's look at the word anxiety to start. And I want you to identify what that means and feels like to you. This is where you're going to have the opportunity to tap into your own unique self. Because I know what anxiety feels like to me. And to me, it feels like something inside of my stomach is on a roller coaster and it's making me feel disgusting is the best word that I can frame it as. I feel like I have butterflies in my stomach, but in the worst way. Sometimes I start to feel nauseous. I feel like I can't concentrate. I feel out of body, almost like I'm watching myself. And voices for me start to feel like they're further away, almost like they're muffled. That's what it feels like to me when I'm anxious. I can't concentrate on anything when I'm feeling anxiety, which is actually super helpful for what I'm going to teach you all today. So start with identifying what anxiety feels like for you. Name it. Name what it feels like. Really go into where you feel it in your body. And if you're even starting to get anxiety, thinking about where you're feeling anxiety, that's okay. Let's bring awareness to that as well. Really, the first thing that we have to do after that is we have to work towards recognizing that we're anxious when we're anxious. Because it's going to be really, really hard to tend to something that we don't know is happening. Let's just say, for example, we're bleeding somewhere in our body and we can't see it. Well, we can't really stop the bleeding because we can't see it. We don't know what's happening. Should it not have pain? Our anxiety is kind of the same way. If we're letting it happen and ruminate and catastrophize and continue without stopping the train, that train's going to keep going. And it's going to start to go faster and faster and get more intense. Because anxiety is your body's way of trying to communicate with you. Which is actually a really empowering thing when you look at it through that lens of, this is actually kind of cool because, I think a lot of us at some point in our life have had the thought of, I wish my body could just tell me what's wrong. I wish it could just communicate with me what it needs. But in a way, it does so through signals. We have to be the ones that lean into those signals and begin to dissect what they might be trying to tell us, what they might mean for us. And anxiety is almost always your body's way of communicating with you. Something is happening or something has happened that has either meant danger, meant uncomfortability. And the thing about anxiety that we need to preface is that our body doesn't know the difference between if you are anxious right now about something happening right now, or if you are anxious about something that has happened years ago or weeks ago, whatever. So I'm going to give you guys an example. And I've shared this at the beginning of my podcasting journey. So whenever I am someone who loves the outdoors, I love going in the woods, I love going on hikes, I love camping, I love anything outdoors, catch me there. That is where you'll find me. Love going outside. However, I also have a chronic fear of bears. Bad fear of bears. My body, as soon as I go into the woods, is on high alert, you guys. Like, it is always super anxious. I always have essential oils with me in my pocket so I can calm myself down, because I just get instantly overwhelmed when I go into the woods, because I'm like, for sure there's going to be a bear, for sure it's going to attack me, for sure it already sees me, whatever. My mind starts to go, right? The thing is I've been in an experience before where I seen a bear in the woods and I was terrified. And that's really where it started for me, where this anxiety-provoking fear started, is because this actually happened. And so there is some rationale behind why my body is responding in that way. But if I've asked anybody in my life how many times they've gone in the woods and actually seen a bear, it would be few and far between, right? So you can see how, because my mind remembers one experience, it predetermines that any walk in the woods is going to equal seeing a bear, which is going to equal danger. So it's getting me ready for that without the threat actually being present, hopefully, to my knowledge. And so I've wired my brain to associate going to the woods with being fearful. I've also associated with a lot of other things, but subconsciously that is running in the back of my mind. And so now when I've been going to the woods, this is the practice that I've been running through, which is what I'm going to teach you guys today. Recognize that it's happening. So the first thing that I do is when I start to get that anxiety-provoking feeling when I'm in the woods, I notice that it's happening. Where do I feel it? What is it trying to tell me? What thoughts am I telling myself? Am I being rational right now? The second thing that we need to do is kind of piggybacking off of that, but it's pausing before we go down a spiral. Again, it's that where do you feel it in your body? Bringing full awareness to it and grounding yourself. For me, I always feel it in my gut, in my stomach. When I feel anxiety, it's like, it's the worst. It's in my belly. So sometimes I like to just hold my belly and bring awareness physically to where it is. I know exactly what it's like to not know where to turn, to feel alone, helpless, and stuck. My goal as a coach is to help clients from a trauma-informed perspective see your worth and develop self-belief so you may chase your dreams and trust your intuition to live the most aligned, fulfilling life possible. If you're looking to elevate your life to the next level but aren't sure where to start, I would absolutely love to connect. If you're feeling pulled or curious, please use the link in the show notes below to book your free call. I look forward to connecting and supporting you on your own unique journey. Because not only am I tending to it externally, but I'm allowing myself to ground by bringing conscious awareness to something externally, which is a great way that we can ground ourselves, as well as that essential oil I talked about earlier. Smell is a great way. So I will bring awareness before I start to spiral. A spiral will look something like, oh my gosh, we're in the woods, there's probably going to be a bear. I don't know if I have bear spray. Did I bring bear spray? I'm not sure. Oh, there's a stick over there. Oh, okay, maybe I can grab that stick if that happens. Oh, I think I have a bell. Bailey's here with me, who's my dog. My parents aren't far if I need to call them. Okay, wait, I don't have service if something happens. Maybe I shouldn't go. That is literally inside the brain of someone with ADHD, but also just how my brain works and how most of our brains work when we start to spiral. It's like one thought to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, and we get ourselves all worked up. Our heart is like pounding out of our chest, but it's like we need to know that we are kind of controlling that and manipulating that in our mind, and our body's responding accordingly to what our thoughts are. Because if we're communicating to our brain like, hey, get ready to fight, there's probably gonna be a bear, like we're probably gonna die today, our body's like, shit, I need to figure this out. I need to start pumping some cortisol. I need to turn our thinking brain offline, and I need to just make you catastrophize so you can plan to keep yourself safe. We need to get ahead of that step, especially when it's not in a time of needing to do that. Should I then be walking and actually see a bear? Then it is time for that to kickstart, not when I'm out trying to peacefully enjoy my walk. This analogy is great because I think that a lot of us feel that just in the run of a day. Walking into a grocery store, walking into the mall, walking in public, going to work, driving, whatever it is. We feel a threat when we don't actually know what that threat is. And depending on our experiences, that threat can be multiple things. That could be a person, that could be a smell, that could be an experience, that could be multiple people. It could be a sound, it could be a food, it could be literally anything. And depending on our past, again, if we have a multitude of these triggers that we have not identified for ourselves, pretty much everything is going to seem like a trigger. And it's going to be a lot, which is why I say, as always, I encourage you to work with a therapist through this as well, to begin to identify in a safe place what your triggers might be. Once we've identified what our triggers are, we're able to get proactive in them. The whole point of starting to almost like fight off anxiety isn't that we want to get rid of it because it's helpful and it is useful at a time and place. But it also can stop us from living our lives in a lot of ways because it keeps us focused on fear and fear of what could happen if, fear of the unknown, just wanting to keep ourselves safe. However, I've tried, when I was dealing with chronic anxiety, I was also pretty much reiterating that society was fearful to my brain by avoiding. Because when we avoid, we're not allowing our brain to have new awareness that isn't always going to exist. I still go for hikes because I want to show my brain that not every time I go for a hike, we're going to have that experience. If I didn't do that and I just avoided, that would be my belief forever. And when we have a belief, the only way that we can undo that is to challenge it, which is that's what we call exposure therapy. It's basically going against what we're thinking and believing so that we can rewire our brain and our thoughts. I am so sorry, you guys, if you just heard Bailey going off like a madman in the background. I had somebody picking up a pair of earrings from my boutique, which shout out to you guys. If you guys ever want to shop my boutique, it's called Jessie Mae Boutique and it is on Facebook. Shameless plug in the midst of talking about anxiety, but that's what was going on, so we had to just pause and tend to that. But nonetheless, where were we? Anxiety. And I think this is a good time for you guys to check in with yourselves. How are you feeling about this? How does this sit with you? What is coming up for you right now? What are maybe some experiences or things that you can identify right now that trigger that anxiety-provoking feeling? I encourage you to write them down. Become friends with them. Become friends with them in the way that they aren't trying to hurt you. They're trying to help you. Anxiety is trying to help you. It's trying to support you in understanding what needs loved on and what needs healed of what have potentially been hurt in the past. So continuing on with the steps. So number 1, you have to work towards recognizing you're anxious. Number 2, pause before you spiral. Where do you feel it in your body? Bring full awareness to it and try to ground yourself. Number 3, ask yourself, what am I thinking about / subconsciously worried about? This one is really helpful for those of us who deal with anxiety. It almost feels random. It feels like we randomly get anxious. This will happen to me. I'll be having an amazing day and then I'll just randomly start to get like a, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know the word I'm trying to think of, you guys. We almost get like a dose of anxiety for some reason. That's not the word I was trying to think of, but anyways. And in those moments, I ask myself, okay, what am I thinking about right now? If I can't think of anything, I'm like, what do I think is happening subconsciously? What am I subconsciously been stressing about overall? And money is a huge one that typically comes up for me. When I feel anxiety out of the blue, and I feel like it's out of the blue when it's not really so much, I'm like, I'm stressed about money, aren't I? Stressing about my future, stressing about this economy that we're living in right now and how expensive everything is and how much of a struggle it is to be a single 24-year-old in this economy trying to buy or build a house. It is nearly impossible, you guys, depending where you live. And so for me, I'll randomly get these random phases of feeling anxiety. And so I have to be curious, because before I would have just let it ruminate and it would have taken over my good day, because any positive thought I was having would quickly be turned into a negative one. I would quickly jump on that roller coaster, if you will, and allow it to ride me instead of me interrupting it and trying to get ahead of it. Because once we've identified what we're anxious about, we are then the ones that get the power to reverse engineer what might be going on. And so that is the third thing, is to ask yourself, what are you thinking about and subconsciously potentially worried about? Number 4, asking yourself, do I have control of what I'm anxious about? If you do have control, how can you begin to take a 1% action? How can you begin to do one little thing that will lessen that anxiety? If you do not feel like you have control, how can you breathe, release, and know that it's not something in your control? And with anxiety in general, once we've identified it, making a plan is super helpful. On Friday, I found myself very anxious about my future. Not anxious in a detrimental way, but anxious in a way of feeling like I need to kind of pave a roadmap. And so on my whiteboard right here, I really broke down the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and 10-year goals. I feel like I have a little bit of a map now. I still need to reverse that more to figure out what my habits need to be now to hit that 10-year mark. However, I was able to really calm down my anxiety by saying, hey, brain, this is my plan. I am a human being. All I have the capability to do is my habits on a daily basis. I can't focus on that 10-year mark because it's not here yet and it doesn't matter. But what I'm doing now does matter. And this anxious thought is not helping me get closer to that. So can you please quiet down? And sometimes I would literally try to talk out loud to my anxious brain. And that is something that can be helpful, is physically talking to ourselves, because we're getting out of our head. We're getting out of our head. We're getting into the present moment. We're getting out and verbalizing things. And so making a plan is very, very, very helpful when we're feeling anxious, because we have steps. When we have a broken down plan and steps, it makes it less overwhelming. I always use the analogy like you're building a house. Imagine you just hired a contracting company and you said, build this house. They're going to be like, okay, what do you want it to look like? Where do I get the material? What size of everything do I need? Where do you want to put it? Like, what are the logistics here? This doesn't make sense. What do you want me to do? Yet we do that all the time with our brain. We have like a thought that's an end result thought, and we're not reverse engineering it for ourselves and allowing our brain to try to rough through that on its own, meanwhile communicating with us that it's anxious. So what can we do externally to calm down that anxiety? And breath, I said that in there, but I really want to reiterate this. Notice how you're breathing. We all breathe so shallow. And that is just igniting our feeling of anxiety. That is igniting our sympathetic nervous system. That is igniting our fight flight, because the way we breathe is the way we feel. The way we breathe is how our body is going to respond. If we are shallow breathing all the time and we're not actually diaphragmic breathing, meaning getting into our gut and fully exhaling, we are likely on a state of overwhelm. Our heart has to work harder. Our lungs have to work harder. Our brain isn't able to think as clearly. So the more that we can remind ourselves to take intentional deep breaths throughout the day, oh goodness, you guys, your body will thank you so, so much. The last thing that I have for you guys is to ask yourself if you felt this before. Could it be a past trigger that is coming up, or is this something new? Which anxiety is almost always a past trigger coming up or worry about the future. And so asking yourself if you felt this feeling before can empower you to recognize and connect the dots of if this is something happening now or if it's happened in the past. A good example I have for this is I unfortunately have a past where a few of my partners abused alcohol, didn't really know when it was time to stop drinking. And so when I got with my last partner, with my ex now, I just assumed that he would have the same issues. And so whenever we would have a glass of wine or a drink or something, I would presuppose that the night was just going to go to crap, without recognizing that that partner didn't really ever drink and that wasn't what he was about. But that was new to me, because I just associated that every partner was going to be the same. Every man was going to do that, which in hindsight was a very toxic, unhealthy thought to have. But because I had seen it so many times, I just associated men with alcohol abuse. reflecting back now, I know how inaccurate and how hurtful that is, not only for me, but for men of the world that do not do that. That is not a nice thought to have. And so I had to ask myself at those times of being triggered with my ex, like, oh, okay, this isn't actually you that's triggering me. This is a past partner that triggered me, and I'm now projecting that onto you. But self-awareness is huge when it comes to anxiety, because we have to be willing to dissect those things for self, not just allowing it to control us. And this takes time, you guys. I've been working through anxiety and studying it and trying to learn about it for the last 6 years, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But I do think that in so many ways, anxiety shows up to tell us that we're worried about something, or something is out of alignment, or something is not right, something is off. And so we have to be willing to listen and know that it will get louder until we tend to it. And being gentle with ourselves. Anxiety doesn't just show up for no reason. However, if we've dealt with anxiety for a long time and we haven't worked through it, we can almost become in a stuck state of anxiety, meaning we're constantly in that hyper-arousal state because our body has just become stuck there because that's where it's had to live for so long, in that fight or flight. But know that with proper psychoeducation and therapy and work and digging and healing, we can work on that. We can begin to heal that one little bit at a time. And so I want to just again reiterate, this is going to look different for you as it does for me, as it does for the people around you. I just wanted to provide some quick tools that help me to talk myself out of those anxious feelings so that they're not ruining my day. Beginning to shift our lens from frig anxiety, it's the worst, it sucks, to yeah, it does kind of suck and it's an icky feeling. However, it's trying to communicate with you so that you don't feel a worse icky feeling or you don't get hurt, right? And so when we can begin to look at our emotions from that lens and have some self-compassion, I think that our world can really, really change. And I know that that's helped me a lot. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. One thing that I want to start doing from time to time, either at the end of my episodes or at the beginning or even a whole episode, is to answer some questions that you guys might be having. If you have a particular experience or a story or something that you're struggling with in the realm of mental health, I would love if you guys would submit those questions to me, or those testimonials, whatever it is, to me. So my email is jessiemaebrown98@gmail.com, and I will link that below. And I'm working on a Rewire to Inspire Gmail as well so that we can send those there. But I would really love for you guys to send me any kind of questions or things you're struggling with that I can read on here anonymously and kind of work through with you guys. Because the more that we, read these stories and share our experiences, the more that we don't feel alone, and the more that we start to share our experiences, it feels good to share our experiences, because we're getting them off our chest and not feeling alone, but maybe somebody else will hear that and resonate and be like, oh, okay, maybe I should try that because that's worked for this person. So if you're feeling pulled to do that, if you're open to do that, I would absolutely love that. As always, there is a link below to book a free 30-minute call as well. I am still taking on new trial clients. I've opened the amount of people that I'm willing to take on. So if that interests you, 3 months of one-on-one coaching with me to help you level up your life in a holistic way, to work through some of your past so you can focus on growth and becoming that next best version of yourself. The link for that is in the description below as well. So thank you guys so much as always. Happiest of Tuesdays, or whenever you're listening to this, and I look forward to chatting with you all on Thursday. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.